If you're so damn smart, he sneered, slamming the contract onto the counter with the flat of his palm. Then translate this. The words sliced through the warm hum of the Old Town Cafe like a blade. Forks froze mid-air. Even the aging jukebox at the far end seemed to pause its soft Motown tune. But Maya Williams didn't flinch. She simply looked down at the thick legal stack in front of Hearth merger documents that had already defeated 3 of the most expensive attorneys in Atlanta and blinked once. She was 19, black, wearing a faded gray apron that smelled faintly of hash browns and coffee. And yet, for a moment, she stood taller than the man in the crisp navy suit glaring at her. Darius Whitmore was not a man used to being questioned. At 48, he had built Whitmore Tech from a tiny code shop in Boston to a billion-dollar tech empire now headquartered in downtown Atlanta. His boardroom presence was legendarious blue eyes, razor-cut jawline, always 3 moves ahead. But tonight, he wasn't in a glass tower. He was in a diner with chipped Formica tables and flickering neon, because his dealt the $2.4 billion merger that would secure his place in the pantheon of tech titan was falling apart, and he needed a place to think. The waitress had simply brought him coffee, then noticed the furrow in his brow, the red ink he'd scrawled along the margins of a clause labeled, "Conditional termination on market disruption." "Looks like you're wrestling with a bear," she'd said, smiling gently as she set down a glass of water. Darius hadn't looked up. "It's a contract. You wouldn't understand." "I might," she replied, and that's when he'd snapped. Maya stood still now, one hand on her hip, the other reaching for a nearby notepad. "Is this the entire contract?" she asked, her voice calm, even. Darius raised a brow. "Does it matter?" "It does," she said. "Context changes things." He didn't answer. He just gestured with a shrug, as if giving a child permission to play with something dangerous, and watched. Maya's fingers moved with a quiet grace as she flipped through the pages. Her eyes dark, focus scanned the text at a surprising pace. The cafe around her buzzed with low conversations and the clatter of silverware, but she seemed to step into a quieter dimension, where only logic lived. "You've got a clause here," she said, pointing, "that lets the other company back out if your stock drops more than 7% after the merger is announced." Darius blinked. "That's not incorrect." Maya nodded, still reading. "It's vague on what counts as market disruption. That gives them wiggle room. Too much wiggle room. Also, the escrow amount they're asking for $400 million locked down with no release triggers. That's not a partnership. That's leverage." Darius leaned forward. "How do you know all this?" Maya didn't look up. "I used to read things like this in class. Emory, pre-law, before my mom got sick, before I had to start flipping pancakes to pay the rent." Something inside Darius shifted barely. His mouth opened, then closed. He studied her face now. Not just the sharpness in her tone, but the steadiness in her hands. She wasn't bluffing. "I'm surprised you stayed in town," he said, almost dryly. "I'm surprised you came into this diner thinking you wouldn't find anyone smarter than you." The line landed like a clean jab sharp, unexpected. The table between them was suddenly more battlefield than countertop. Darius sat back. For the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about stock prices or shareholder votes. He was thinking about the girl across from him. No, the young woman, who'd just exposed 2 key weaknesses in a contract drafted by corporate elites. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya. Maya Williams." He nodded slowly. "You ever think about doing more with all that sharp thinking?" "I did," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "But sometimes life doesn't care what you plan." Silence stretched between them for a breath too long. Then she pushed the contract back toward him. "You should fix Clause 7C and add a trigger on the escrow fund. Phase-based release, tied to deliverables. Otherwise, they'll squeeze you when you're most vulnerable." Darius studied her, jaw tight. "You're serious," he murmured. Maya gave a half-smile. "I was serious before you insulted me. I'm just being generous now." He didn't reply. Not right away. His eyes flicked down to the contract, then to her notepad. Her notes were clear, concise, surgical. "Can I buy you coffee?" he asked, somewhat awkwardly. Maya glanced at his untouched mug. "You already did." And with that, she turned, walking back toward the kitchen, her steps steady, her head held high. Darius stared at her back, then back down at the contract. For the first time in weeks, The words on the page didn't seem like fog. They were starting to make sense, and not because of him. He didn't know it yet, but the most important meeting of his life hadn't happened in a boardroom. It had just taken place in a booth beneath a flickering neon light, over black coffee and a side of humility. Before we dive back into the story, tell me, where are you watching this video from? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow, the most inspiring stories are waiting just for you. The neon buzz of Old Town Cafe had dulled to a soft hum by the time Darius Whitmore folded up the contract and stood. His coffee had long gone cold. The girl, no. The woman had vanished into the back without a glance over her shoulder. He lingered a moment near the door, staring at the swinging kitchen flap, then left without a word. That night, sleep eluded him. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling of his luxury penthouse downtown, the city lights casting long, fractured shadows across the walls. Something about Maya Williams bothered him. Not in a way that insulted his pride, though, yes. His ego had taken a blow, but in a way that scraped against the hardened parts of him, the parts he thought had long fossilized. He kept replaying her words, her precision, her composure, the way she didn't flinch when he snapped, didn't shrink when he challenged her. She wasn't playing at being smart. She was smart. By morning, Darius had already had his legal team re-examine Clause 7C and the escrow triggers, and they confirmed it. Maya had been right on both. What infuriated him more was how easily she'd spotted them, things his top attorneys had missed. Later that afternoon, as he sat in a boardroom lined with glass and chrome, surrounded by people in $1,000 suits, Darius found his mind drifting back to chipped counters, cheap coffee, and a 19-year-old waitress who'd spoken about billion-dollar contracts as if she were correcting a grocery list. By Wednesday, he found himself standing outside the cafe again. It was lunch rush. The clinking of plates and the low murmur of casual conversation poured through the slightly ajar door. He hesitated, not used to being uncertain about entrances. When he stepped inside, a few heads turned, not out of recognition, but because he looked wildly out of place in his suit. Maya spotted him immediately. She was carrying a tray of 3 water glasses, weaving between tables like she'd been born in that space. Her hair was tied back in a low puff, her apron a little looser today, her sneakers scuffed. She gave him a look, not hostile, not curious, just aware. "Back for the eggs?" she asked as he approached the counter. "Back for you," he replied bluntly. A pause. Then she set the tray down, leaned forward slightly, and said with no amusement, "I'm working." "I won't take long," Darius said. "I just wanted to say thank you. You saved me from a potential disaster. Millions, at least." Maya blinked slowly. "You sure you want to be seen thanking a waitress?" "That's the thing," he said, sliding onto a stool. "I'm not sure you're just a waitress." She tilted her head, arms crossed now. "What else do you think I am? Someone who understands systems. Someone who sees through language. Someone who, given a chance, might outthink every junior associate in my firm." Maya stared at him, unblinking. "So what? You offering me a job?" "Not exactly. I'm offering you a conversation. Off the clock, just a chat." He glanced down at the countertop, then back up. "No suits, no condescension, just coffee. My treat this time." She studied him for a long beat, then nodded slightly. "Come back at 10. That's when my shift ends. If you're serious, you'll wait." "I'm serious." "Then I guess we'll see," she said, and walked away. 10 p.m. came. The cafe had thinned out. The old veterans who hung around the jukebox had left. The dishwasher hummed in the back. Maya emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Her apron was off, her hair down. She sat across from Darius in the same booth they'd shared nights ago. "You're persistent," she said. "I'm curious." "About what?" "How you got here. How someone who thinks like you ends up. Not in a courtroom, not at a desk in D.C., but here, at this counter." Maya took a deep breath. "Life doesn't follow a script, Mr. Whitmore. I had a plan. Pre-law at Emory, full ride, mock trial champ. Then my mom's kidneys failed. Dialysis 3 times a week. Medicaid barely covered it. My little brother started getting into fights at school. Bills piled up. School had to wait." There was no pity in her voice. Just fact, delivered cleanly. "I kept studying on my own. Law journals, legal blogs, anything I could get my hands on. Even started coding. working on a legal literacy app for teens. Something simple, interactive contracts, translation tools, stuff like that. But who's going to take a waitress with a half-finished degree seriously? I would, Darius said, without hesitation. Maya raised a brow. You? The guy who called me sweetheart and told me to stick to pouring coffee? His jaw clenched. I deserved that. Yes, she said simply. But I'm not stupid, he added. I've made a career out of spotting ideas before they go mainstream. I know talent when I see it. And Maya, what I saw the other night that wasn't casual talent, that was brilliance. She looked down, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. I'm not asking for charity, she said. Good. I'm not offering it. I'm offering partnership. I want to help you build your app. Resources, developers, funding. You lead. I back you. Maya didn't answer for a while. She glanced out the window, where the streetlights spilled gold onto the pavement. You know what the hardest part of being invisible is? She said at last. It's not that people don't see you. It's that they look straight at you and still decide you're not worth seeing. Darius's voice dropped. Then let's make them look again. Her eyes met his. Okay, she said softly. But I don't want to be your project. I want to be your equal. You will be, he promised. Outside, the city buzzed. But inside that booth, something else buzzed louder possibility. For the first time in a long time, Maya felt the weight of her ideas being taken seriously. And Darius felt something foreign yet welcome hope. Not in numbers or margins, but in people. They clinked 2 coffee mugs together. The deal was sealed. And a revolution's mall, quiet, undeniable, had begun. 3 days later, Maya Williams found herself walking into a place she never imagined stepping foot in Whitmore Tech headquarters, 29th floor, Boardroom West. Everything was too quiet, too polished. The floor gleamed like a sheet of ice, and the windows stretched so high she felt like she was standing inside a spaceship rather than an office building. She smoothed the collar of her thrifted navy blouse and clutched the worn leather binder that held sketches of her app. A security guard had already asked to see her ID twice. The receptionist had paused, blinked, then said, "Waitress Maya?" like it was a punchline, but she'd held her chin high. Darius was waiting just inside the boardroom, already seated with a sleek tablet in front of him. He looked up and offered a smile that was almost nervous, something Maya hadn't seen from him before. "Come on in. Don't worry, it's just us," he said. She nodded and entered, but her back stayed straight. Just us didn't erase the sting of how the front desk staff had looked at her. As she sat down, Darius gestured toward a second chair. "I had our dev team mock up some early design options for the interface. Thought you might want to take a look." Maya opened her binder instead. "Before we get into that, I'd like to go over a few core priorities. The app has to be accessible visually and linguistically. We're talking about high schoolers, working-class adults, maybe even people for whom English isn't their first language." Darius leaned forward, intrigued. "Go on." "I want layered content. Interactive scenarios that show what happens when you sign a lease, get pulled over, or apply for unemployment. Real things, real consequences, and plain language. No legal jargon." "None," Maya said flatly. "Law shouldn't feel like a weapon only a few people know how to use." Darius nodded slowly. "You think of all this on your own?" She shrugged. "I listen. And I've been poor. That's a hell of an education." He smiled at that. But the moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Raymond Teller, Darius's senior VP of legal affairs. Late 40s, pressed gray suit, and a jaw too tight to be friendly. He stepped in with a folder and a gaze that flicked to Maya with thinly veiled skepticism. "I thought we were having a closed session," Raymond said. "We are," Darius replied. "Maya's part of this now." Raymond gave a tight smile. "Right, the waitress." Maya didn't flinch. "Still do weekends at Old Town. The tips are better than you think." Darius stood. "Raymond, Maya caught 2 kill clauses in that merger doc that your entire team missed." "That so?" Raymond's tone was a blade sheathed in politeness. "Well, I'm sure she's very intuitive. She's leading the app project," Darius said plainly. "I'd like your team to support her with legal vetting and IP frameworks." Raymond raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "I'm not in the habit of joking with 9 figures on the line." Raymond nodded, but his face said something else entirely. "Of course. We'll be cooperative. After he left, Maya looked down at the table. He's not going to help me. He's going to stall me. Darius sighed. He's old school. He's a gatekeeper, she corrected. And I'm not the kind of person he ever imagined walking through the gate. Darius rubbed his jaw. Do you want me to fire him? She met his eyes. I want to earn this, not inherit it. Let me deal with him. But when I ask for something, I need to know you've got my back. Darius nodded. You have it. That night, Maya worked alone in her apartment. Her little brother, Marcus, sat on the couch behind her doing algebra homework, while their mom dozed on a recliner nearby with a heating pad on her hip. The apartment smelled of Vicks and spaghetti. On the coffee table sat a used Chromebook, covered in duct tape and stickers. That was Maya's entire development lab. She clicked through her notes from the day, eyes scanning code snippets and layout sketches. Her brain ached, but she pushed through. Suddenly Marcus spoke. You think they're gonna let you finish it? She turned. Finish what? The app. The thing for court stuff. You think those rich guys are really gonna let you? She stared at her brother, unsure what to say. Then finally, I'm not waiting for permission. He looked at her like he was trying to understand that level of boldness, then nodded, quietly, and went back to his math. The next morning, Maya showed up to Whitmore Tech again, this time with 4 mock-up wireframes, a sample module, and a proposal that listed 10 community-based beta testers. Raymond refused to join the meeting. Instead, his assistant forwarded a redlined version of her document with the note, "Too ambitious. Suggest scaling back to protect liability." Maya read the edits, then printed out her original version and marched to Darius's office. She dropped both copies on his desk. I'm not scaling back, she said. Darius read through the notes silently, then looked up. You're right. We go with your version. Maya blinked. That easy? He shrugged. Number, but that necessary. She smiled. A small one, the kind you save for moments that feel like private victories. Then she turned to go. At the door, she stopped. He's going to keep trying to block me. I know. Then be ready. Darius nodded, slowly, already dialing a number. I'm always ready. As Maya stepped into the elevator, she realized something had shifted, not just in the way Darius saw her, but in how she saw herself. She wasn't playing defense anymore. She was building something, step by step, and nobody, no matter how well tailored their suit, was going to stop her now. The doors closed with a soft ding, sealing her inside a rising glass box of possibility. And this time, she didn't look down. The prototype came to life on a quiet Sunday morning, just after sunrise. Maya was still in her pajamas, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor with her brother Marcus snoring softly behind her on the couch. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart hammering, as the interface she'd dreamed of for 2 years blinked into view. Clean lines, simple language, a start button shaped like a courthouse gavel. She hit begin. The screen loaded the first scenario. You've been pulled over by a police officer. What are your rights? Below it, 3 buttons. Say nothing, ask why, reach for license. Each option led to short, animated outcome, some that escalated badly, others that de-escalated. The voiceover was hers, recorded quietly at midnight the night before. Steady, patient, not robotic. It wasn't perfect. The fonts were clunky, the animations jerky, but it worked. She sat back and exhaled. It lives, she whispered, more to herself than anyone. At 9:07 a.m., she emailed Darius the link. No explanation, no headline, just a subject line. First breath. He called her 30 minutes later. Is this real? He asked, almost breathless. You tell me, Maya said. I've never seen anything like this, he murmured. You made this on a Chromebook? Yeah, and half a bottle of instant coffee. He chuckled. I'm showing this to our UX team today. With your permission. You don't need my permission, she said. You need my voice in the room. That afternoon, she walked into the Whitmore Tech Innovation Lab with her back straight and her binder tucked under one arm. The lab was glass-walled and sun-drenched, filled with developers and design consultants in sneakers and hoodies, who barely looked up when she entered until Darius announced, Everyone, this is Maya Williams. She built what you're about to see from scratch, and she's leading this project moving forward. That got their attention. Some nodded respectfully. Others exchanged glances, unreadable. One woman, mid-30s with pink hair and a Stanford hoodie, smiled and said, "Hell yeah." Maya connected her laptop and launched the demo. For 15 minutes, the room was silent except for the clicks of the mouse and the voices from her app. Scenarios, choices, legal explanations in plain speech. At the end, a round of applause broke out, not thunderous, but real. A developer named Luis leaned forward. "We can polish the animations, optimize for mobile, but the flow is intuitive, the logic paths, tight." "Where'd you learn design?" asked another. Maya shrugged. "From mistakes, and from watching how people get hurt when they don't know their rights." Over the next 2 weeks, Maya became a fixture in the lab. She sat through UI debates, led storyboarding sessions, and held team huddles at 10 p.m., fueled by diner leftovers and vending machine coffee. She was younger than everyone, less formally educated, and the only black woman in most rooms, but none of that stopped her. Darius, true to his word, backed her at every meeting. But he also watched closely as Maya began forming a leadership style that was nothing like his. She asked questions more than she gave orders. She let junior designers test ideas before senior ones. She listened. And the app evolved. It wasn't just Lawbridge anymore. It was a movement. Then came the school pilot. Maya had suggested testing the app in 3 Atlanta high schools with at-risk youth. She and Marcus printed flyers, created QR codes, and handed them out outside football games and bus stops. On a chilly Tuesday morning, Maya stood in front of 30 high school seniors at Langston Prep, presenting Lawbridge on a classroom projector. She wore a blazer over her diner uniform. It was the only professional jacket she owned. "You ever wonder what happens if a landlord keeps your deposit?" she asked the class. A girl in the back raised her hand. "They keep it. You can't do nothing." "That's what I thought too," Maya said. "Until I learned that there's a legal deadline, and if they miss it, you can file a claim. No lawyer needed, just a form." The class leaned in, not out of obligation, out of genuine curiosity. Afterward, one of the students stayed behind. He was tall, skinny, with sad eyes and a tear-shaped scar on his cheek. "You really make this?" he asked. "Every word," she replied. "My mom, she signed some papers last year. She didn't understand them. Now we're getting evicted." Maya's chest tightened. "Show me what she signed. I'll walk you through it." He nodded, then whispered, "No one ever talks to us like we matter." Maya watched him walk out, her throat burning. She knew that feeling, being talked over, being invisible. Later that night, she sat on the fire escape of their apartment building, laptop balanced on her knees. Darius called. "You okay?" he asked. She told him about the student, about the pilot, about the number of users already engaging with the beta app. "You've started something, Maya," he said softly. "Do you realize that?" "I don't want it to be mine alone," she said. "I want it to belong to every kid who ever had to sign something they didn't understand." Darius was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Come in tomorrow. We're going to talk scaling, funding, and putting your name on the masthead." She stared out into the city. Streetlights flickered below. Sirens wailed in the distance. She felt tired to her bones but alive in a way she hadn't in years. "Okay," she whispered, "but you better be ready to build something they can't ignore." And from that moment on, neither of them looked back. It began subtly, the way quiet sabotage often does. A postponed meeting here, a delayed file there, passwords mysteriously expired, calendar invites sent but never received. Maya noticed the pattern in the second week after Lawbridge's school pilot went public. What had once felt like momentum now moved in slow drag. On Tuesday morning, she arrived at Whitmore Tech's lab to find her access badge deactivated. The receptionist, all painted nails and practiced indifference, looked up from her desk and said, "You're not in the system this week." Maya kept her voice steady. "That's not possible. I've got a standing pass. Sorry, you'll need to wait for clearance." An hour passed before someone from facilities manually opened the door. By then, the team meeting had already started without her. Inside the lab, Raymond Teller stood by the whiteboard, dry erase marker in hand, leading a new discussion about refocusing Lawbridge's scope. The air felt colder. "Maya," he said with a thin smile when she stepped in, "glad you could join us. We were just rethinking some elements of rollout strategy. We're concerned about liability." "Whose concern is that?" Maya asked, setting her bag down. A few board members, investors. They're worried the app's language might be interpreted as legal advice. Maya folded her arms. It's not advice, it's education. Every scenario is based on publicly available statutes. Every outcome is coded with disclaimers. Raymond nodded but kept smiling, like a man indulging a child. Even so, the company has a reputation to protect. We might want to dial back the school outreach and limit it to private beta testing for now. No, Maya said, voice calm but firm. Those students are the reason this exists. Scaling back outreach isn't protecting the company, it's protecting old systems. A few heads turned. Darius wasn't in the room. Raymond closed the cap on his marker and stepped closer. Look, Miss Williams, we all admire your passion, but this isn't a college project. There are legal boundaries you may not fully understand. I understand boundaries just fine, Maya replied. I've lived inside them my whole life. Raymond said nothing more, just turned back to the board and continued the meeting. But from that point forward, Maya knew what she was up against. That evening, she went to see Darius. He was in his office, sleeves rolled up, reviewing data reports. When Maya stepped in, he looked up, instantly sensing the tension. They're trying to suffocate it, she said, sitting across from him. Who? Raymond. And whoever's behind him. Darius leaned back. Tell me everything. She recounted the access badge incident, the meeting she was locked out of, the reframing of outreach, the sudden reclassification of her pilot program as preliminary exploration. Darius rubbed his temple. Raymond's been with me since the beginning. He's cautious, but he's not malicious. He's not cautious, Maya said. He's afraid. Afraid of a black girl without a degree outshining his department. Afraid of accountability. Darius didn't argue. He looked at her long and hard, then nodded. I'll handle it, he said. No, Maya replied. Let me. I don't want this handed to me. I want to earn it. He hesitated, then leaned forward. Then what do you need from me? Backup. Quiet, strong, and immediate. The next morning, Maya returned to the lab early. She brought donuts plain glaze, apple fritters, powdered sugar and set them on the table without a word. She smiled at Luis, nodded to the UX team, plugged in her laptop, and began. As the others trickled in, the energy felt different. Maya didn't ask for permission. She launched her presentation. I want to show you what Lawbridge really is, she began. Not from a legal risk standpoint, from a human one. She played a short testimonial video a student from Langston Prep, wide-eyed and soft-spoken, saying, "This app helped my mom understand the lease she signed. We stopped an eviction. I didn't know apps could do that." Another clip. A janitor who used it to contest an illegal paycheck deduction. A single mom who avoided a payday loan trap. Each face different. Each story the same people who'd been powerless now holding knowledge like armor. Silence followed the video. Raymond entered midway through, stiff and uninvited. He stood in the back with his arms crossed. This, Maya said, gesturing to the screen, is why I'm not stepping back. You can't build change by playing safe. You build it by facing discomfort. Raymond stepped forward. Maya, may I say something? No, Maya said simply. Not until I'm done. He paused. She held his gaze. He said nothing. Darius walked in seconds later. Slow, deliberate. He stood beside Maya, without saying a word. I've seen what she's building, he finally said, facing the room, and I've never been more certain of anything. This company was founded on risk. If we back down now, we betray that legacy. Raymond looked from Darius to Maya, then back. Understood, he muttered. After the meeting, several developers came up to Maya, nodding, some shaking her hand. One said, I've got a cousin who needs this app. Let me know how I can help. That night, as Maya walked home under the buzzing city lights, she thought about power, not just the kind wielded in glass towers, but the kind you build slowly, through action, trust, and refusal to disappear. She wasn't waiting for permission anymore. She was rewriting the terms. And this time, she wasn't doing it alone. Maya sat at her kitchen table past midnight, laptop glowing faint blue against the yellowed walls of the apartment. Her mother was asleep in the next room, and Marcus was on the floor nearby, headphones in, trying to finish his geometry homework. The soft tapping of Maya's fingers filled the silence. broken only by the occasional page flip or chair creak. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from reading the same document for hours line by line, clause by clause, dissecting every footnote in the final merger agreement between Whitmore Tech and Kessler Solutions. Something didn't sit right. She'd reviewed the summary at least a dozen times, but the language in Schedule F titled Contingency Triggers was unusually vague. One paragraph in particular caught her eye. In the event of a market-based valuation event resulting in a temporary decline exceeding 7% of pre-merger market cap, Kessler retains the right to withdraw from the agreement without penalty. That word temporary suddenly jumped at her. "Marcus," she said, pulling the earbuds from his ear gently, "look at this sentence." He groaned. "Maya, I'm not even passing English. You think I know what market-based valuation means?" She smiled slightly, then turned back to the screen. "It means they can walk away from the merger if Darius's stock drops 7 just for a day. They could tank his value with a rumor, trigger this clause, and leave without owing a dime." Marcus blinked. "That's messed up." "Yeah," Maya whispered. "It is." By the next morning, she was at Whitmore Tech by 6:45 a.m., waiting outside the building with a coffee she barely sipped. She watched the sunrise reflect off the glass tower like a warning. As soon as security opened the lobby, she bolted up to the 29th floor. Darius wasn't in his office yet, so she went straight to the legal archives. With help from the sleepy-eyed intern on desk duty, she pulled up every version of the contract and began tracing the evolution of the clause. It had been clean in earlier drafts. Then, 3 weeks ago, a revision from Kessler's side slipped in the word temporary. Just that, a single word. By 8 a.m., Darius walked in, carrying a phone to his ear, looking distracted. He paused when he saw her already inside. "Maya? I need 5 minutes," she said. He hung up. "What's going on?" She placed the printed page in front of him. "This clause, Schedule F, it's a trap." He scanned it, frowned. "I've seen this. We reviewed it with Raymond's team. Number. They skimmed it. Or worse, they missed it. Look closer. If your stock dips for even 1 day, Kessler can void the deal and keep their options open. No penalty, no consequences. And right now, you're exposed." Darius's expression shifted slowly: disbelief, then concern, then a slow, simmering anger. Why the hell would they put this in at the last minute? "Because they're playing you," she said. "Waiting for you to announce the deal. Let your market bump, then leak a story to drop it. A fake leak, temporary dip. They walk away. Your company bleeds." He stared at her. "Jesus. I need you to listen very carefully," Maya said. "You either renegotiate this clause now, or you prepare for a public takedown in 3 weeks." Darius walked to the window, gripping the bridge of his nose. "Why didn't Raymond see this?" "Because he was too busy trying to sabotage my access to this building," she replied flatly. Darius turned. This is why you're here. You saw what no one else could, what no one else would." He didn't hesitate. He picked up the office phone and dialed. "Call a board emergency session. Today, I want legal, PR, and M&A in the conference room by 10. We're rewriting this deal." Later that morning, Maya sat silently at the end of the long polished table in the executive boardroom. Her seat wasn't labeled. No nameplate. But everyone there knew who she was now. Raymond entered last, his face tight. He didn't look at her. Darius opened the meeting without preamble. "We're pulling Clause F, redrafting the language." Maya Williams identified a loophole that could have sunk this company. She brought it forward. "She's the reason we're still in control of this deal." There was a stunned silence. Raymond finally spoke. "With all due respect, we vetted that clause thoroughly." "No, you glossed it," Darius said. "She caught what you didn't. From now on, all merger documentation passes through Maya's desk first." A few executives exchanged glances. One board member, a woman in her 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes, leaned forward. "Maya," she said, "how did you learn to spot something like that?" Maya met her gaze calmly. "I've been taught to read the fine print my whole life, because people like me aren't given second chances. We have to get it right the first time." The woman nodded, slowly. "Good answer." After the meeting, Raymond cornered her in the hallway. "Enjoy the spotlight while it lasts." "Huh." Maya didn't flinch. "I don't need the spotlight. I've got the truth." He blinked, thrown off. And unlike you, she added, I don't need a title to make a difference. She walked away without waiting for a response. That evening, Darius found her in the lab, bent over her laptop again. He placed a folder in front of her. What's this? She asked. Your official appointment. Director of Legal Innovation. Effective immediately. Full salary. Full benefits. Maya opened the folder and stared at the letterhead. I thought you said I didn't need a title, she said quietly. You don't, he replied. But they do, and they'll think twice before underestimating you again. She smiled. Tired. Steady. Thank you, she said. But we're not done yet. No, he agreed. We're just getting started. And in that quiet lab surrounded by code, coffee cups, and the faint hum of a server, rack justice began to feel like something not just possible, but inevitable. Maya's name hit the press before she was ready. It began with a headline buried 3 clicks deep on a tech gossip site. Waitress turned legal prodigy. Whitmore Tech's bold new bet. Then came the tweets, the LinkedIn posts, the think pieces. By midweek, her inbox had exploded. Some praised her as the face of a new era. Others accused Whitmore Tech of manufacturing a diversity story. A few just scoffed. Is this what Silicon Valley's come to high school dropouts running legal ops? Maya tried to ignore it. She poured herself into finalizing Lawbridge's codebase, testing user experience flows, overseeing community partner trainings. The app was just days from launch. And still, the noise kept getting louder. Then came the email from Investor Relations. Subject: Urgent. Concerns raised by Tier 1 investors. The body of the message was short and brutal. Several major stakeholders had voiced discomfort with Maya's central role in product leadership. They requested clarification on her credentials and whether she had the experience to helm something with significant reputational risk. She stared at the screen, unmoving, not shocked, just tired. That evening, in a closed-door meeting with Darius, legal counsel, and 2 members of the board, the issue was laid bare. We're not questioning her intelligence, said a man in a navy pinstripe suit with a Princeton lapel pin. But it's unprecedented. No degree, no traditional resume, and she's about to be the face of our most visible launch in years. Your real concern, Maya said, is that I didn't come from your world. And yet here I am, outperforming people who did. The man blinked. That's not fair. No, she replied. It's accurate. The general counsel, a woman named Karen Cho, cleared her throat. From a purely legal standpoint, there's no issue. Maya's title is accurate. Her contributions are documented. She's filed IP under her name. The backlash is emotional, not structural. Darius stood then. He hadn't spoken much during the meeting, but now his voice cut through the tension. I hired Maya because she saw what none of you saw. She saved this company from a billion-dollar sinkhole. She's led a product that, before she touched it, was just a half-baked concept on a pitch deck. And if this board forces me to choose between her and placating a few donors who are afraid of change, I will choose her, every time. Silence. Maya looked down at her hands. They were trembling. She folded them into her lap. After the meeting, Darius found her in the hallway. You okay? No, she said honestly. He nodded. Good. You shouldn't be. You're carrying more than you should have to. They don't see me, she whispered. Not really. Oh, they see you, he said. They're just terrified of what you mean. Maya returned to the lab that night, but she didn't code. She sat alone at the far window, staring down at the city below. Lights glittered like scattered glass. A freight train groaned somewhere in the distance. Her phone buzzed. A text from her brother Marcus. Saw the news. Don't let them talk slick. You're the real deal. Always were. She smiled. Just a little. Then she stood, walked to the whiteboard, and wrote 3 words in bold marker. Launch. On. Time. The next morning, Whitmore Tech's PR team presented her with a revised script for the launch announcement. Polished, sterile, safe. She read it once, then placed it gently on the table. No, she said. We just want to make sure nothing is controversial, one executive offered. Justice is always controversial, she replied. She wrote her own speech that night, not for approval, for truth. The day of the launch, the auditorium was packed. Reporters, developers, school officials, community organizers, investors. Darius opened with a short welcome, then stepped aside. Maya walked out alone. No music, no fanfare, just her and a microphone. "Good morning," she began, voice steady. "My name is Maya Williams. I was raised 6 blocks from here. I've waited tables, changed bandages for my mother, and helped my brother stay in school. And now, I've helped build something that doesn't belong to a boardroom. It belongs to everyone who's ever signed something they didn't understand and paid the price for it." She paused. Lawbridge isn't just an app, it's a flashlight. In a room most people don't even know they're locked in. The room held its breath. "This isn't about me. I don't need applause. I need you to listen to what happens when people get tools they were never meant to touch, and use them to stand taller." She looked out into the crowd and finished simply. "Justice shouldn't be reserved for the fluent. It belongs to all of us. Today, we begin proving that." When she stepped off stage, the silence broke into a roar. Reporters shouted. Phones flashed. People stood not out of politeness, but belief. And Maya? She didn't smile. Not yet. There was still work to do. 2 hours after the Lawbridge launch, Maya sat alone in a side conference room at Whitmore Tech's headquarters. The cheers had faded, the cameras were gone, but her heartbeat still hadn't returned to normal. She had delivered the speech. She had stood in front of a crowd of decision-makers, investors, skeptics, and reporter sand, spoken from the marrow of her experience. But now came the harder part. The attention. A knock on the door broke her silence. It was Luis, one of the UX developers, holding a tablet in his hand. "You should see this," he said, voice trembling with disbelief. "We're trending." He turned the screen toward her. On the home page of a major tech news outlet, a photo of Maya at the podium stared back at her. The headline read, "The future of law is here and she wears sneakers and speaks truth." Below that, an embedded video already had 1.2 million views. Comments flooded in. Everything from, "This girl is brilliant," to, "Why hasn't she been hired by the White House yet?" And, of course, a few venomous ones. Affirmative action at its finest. "Where's her degree?" Another media stunt. Maya handed the tablet back. "I don't care about trending," she said. Louis smiled. "That's why you are." She thanked him, then pulled her phone from her pocket. There were over 100 texts from journalists, others from former classmates, even a message from her high school debate coach, who wrote, "Told you you had the fire." She scrolled slowly until she reached a name that made her pause. Darius Whitmore. His text read simply, "Board's asking for a meeting. Today. You ready?" Her fingers hovered over the screen before she replied, "Always." By 3 p.m., she was back in the boardroom. This time, they were all waiting for her. Darius stood as she entered, nodding her toward the head of the table. "This seat's yours today." Maya sat, back straight, shoulders square. She wasn't pretending anymore. She had already stepped into the storm. Now, she was guiding it. An older board member, Miss Ellen Briggs' white hair, thick glasses, and a quiet intensity cleared her throat. "Miss Williams," she began, "the response has been overwhelming. Investors are calling, community leaders, even the mayor's office. We're looking at federal interest." "I understand," Maya said. "But there's concern," Ellen continued. "The platform's reach is growing rapidly. There are legal implications we hadn't forecasted, and some feel it might be prudent to bring in external leadership, someone with policy experience to co-lead with you." Maya let the words hang in the air before replying. "I appreciate the concern, but I'll remind you I've led every decision this app has made, not out of guesswork, but necessity. I built Lawbridge because I lived the gap it's trying to close, and with all due respect, I won't be managed into silence by a co-leader with no skin in this fight." One of the younger board members leaned forward. "But with federal contracts looming, then it's more important than ever that the person leading this isn't just fluent in systems," Maya said, "but grounded in the lives this app touches." Darius said nothing, but his eyes gleamed with quiet pride. Ellen folded her hands. "Then we'll follow your lead. But be prepared. The next few weeks won't be easy. Success rarely is." After the meeting, Maya walked through the corridors of Whitmore Tech and noticed something strange. People were smiling at her. Not politely, not awkwardly, but warmly. like they finally saw her as more than an exception, maybe even as a leader. She returned to the lab and was surprised to see a small group gathered around the main monitor. Luis looked up. "You're going to want to see this." The screen displayed a breaking news banner. President's office reaches out to Lawbridge for potential collaboration on National Digital Literacy Plan. Maya stared. "Is this real?" Luis nodded. "They want a pilot version of the app adapted for federal use in community centers. Free." The room buzzed. But Maya wasn't smiling. Not yet. Instead, she stepped outside into the alley behind the building. Cool wind brushed against her face. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in months. The voice on the other end answered, cautious. "Hello? Maya Williams," she said. "Remember me?" A pause. Then, "Of course I remember. I heard your speech." It was Professor Annette Sloan, Maya's former pre-law mentor at Emory. The woman who once told her she had the sharpest mind in the freshman class before Maya dropped out without saying goodbye. "I didn't finish what I started," Maya said. "You just finished something bigger," Sloan replied. "I want to come back," Maya said quietly. "Not because I need the degree to prove anything, but because I want the education I didn't get to finish. On my terms." Sloan was silent for a moment. Then, "Your seat is still here. It always was." Maya hung up and stared at the sky. Gray clouds loomed, but a strip of gold light broke through the edges. That night, she returned home to find Marcus on the couch, watching her speech again. "You really said all that?" he asked, eyes wide. She nodded. "And I meant every word." He grinned. "I told my teacher my sister made an app that might get on the president's phone." She laughed, soft and disbelieving. "That's probably the first time I've ever made national news with a hoodie and no makeup." He leaned his head on her shoulder. Still looked like a boss. Maya closed her eyes and let the moment sink in. She wasn't here because someone gave her a seat. She was here because she'd built her own table. And now, everyone wanted to pull up a chair. It was nearly a year to the day since Maya had first slid that thick contract across the counter to Darius Whitmore, daring him to believe she could translate more than just legalese. Now, she stood on a makeshift stage in a community center in Birmingham, Alabama, staring out at a room packed with kids, parents, teachers, and elders wearing Sunday best on a Wednesday. Behind her, a banner hung from the ceiling in bold blue letters. Lawbridge Free Legal Education for Everyone. The mayor sat in the front row, a local pastor, 2 members of Congress. But Maya only had eyes for the rows of young people looking up at her like she was something between a teacher and a revolution. She took a breath. "You ever been told to sign something without knowing what it meant?" she asked the crowd. Murmurs of yes rippled through the room. One man in the back said out loud, "More times than I can count." Maya nodded. "Lawbridge started because I watched my own mother sign away a medical payment plan she didn't understand. I watched my neighbors get evicted, arrested, trapped, because no one told them what a clause meant. No one told them they had the right to ask questions, so I started asking." The crowd clapped, soft but honest. Now, thanks to partners across the country, Lawbridge is available in 27 states. It's in libraries, classrooms, probation offices, and even shelters. But more than anything, she said, glancing toward a cluster of students wearing black hoodies and earbuds, it's in your hands, and that's where it belongs. Afterward, people lined up to speak to her. A single mom asked if Lawbridge could help her fight a predatory rent-to-own agreement. A retired trucker told her he'd use the app to challenge a traffic fine. A teenager said it helped him understand the difference between a search warrant and intimidation. She stayed until every question was answered, every hug given. Later, she stepped out the back door of the center, breathing in the thick southern air. Darius was waiting by the car. He grinned. "You know you just made 3 new politicians cry in public, right?" Maya rolled her eyes. "They'll be okay." He handed her a cold bottle of sweet tea. "You good?" She nodded. "Better than good." Because there's something else," he said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "What now?" she asked, taking it with mild suspicion. "Open it." Inside was a short letter handwritten, neat. "Dear Miss Williams, we are proud to inform you that your re-enrollment at Emory University has been approved with full scholarship. We've also renamed the Law and Social Change Fellowship in your honor. You're not just returning. You're building a legacy. Maya stared at the paper, unmoving. You did this? No, Darius said. You did this. I just made a few phone calls to make sure the world kept up. She blinked rapidly, then pressed the letter to her chest. I want to finish it, she said quietly. Not for the degree, for the journey. You've already taught more law than most professors ever will, he said. But yeah, do it. That fall, she attended her first class as a returning student. No cameras, no press. Just her, a spiral notebook, and the same stubborn hunger she'd had since she was a girl reading contracts behind the diner counter. She also launched the Second Glance Foundation, a nonprofit offering legal literacy grants to youth from underserved communities. The slogan was simple: read it again. This time, with power. In the months that followed, Maya testified before Congress on digital access to legal rights. She spoke at juvenile detention centers. She stood beside survivors of wage theft, housing fraud, and systemic silence. And each time, she didn't position herself as a savior but as someone who'd once been in their seat. And through it all, Lawbridge kept growing. One night, just before Christmas, Maya returned to Old Town Cafe, the original. Still chipped tiles, still flickering neon. She sat in the same booth from that night a year ago. Darius joined her, setting down 2 mugs of hot black coffee. You ever think it'd come to this? He asked. She looked around the cafe. I didn't think it would go anywhere. He nodded. Funny thing is, neither did I. They sat in silence for a moment. Do you regret it? He asked. Taking the bet on me? Maya smiled. You weren't the bet, she said. The truth was. A pause. Then, from behind the counter, a new waitress approached. Young, nervous, afro in a puff. She recognized Maya instantly and fumbled with the notepad. Sorry, the girl stammered. You're her, right? The app lady? Maya grinned. I am. My aunt used your app, the girl said. She got her job back after being wrongfully fired. She said to tell you thank you. Maya reached out, took the girl's hand gently. Tell her she did it herself. I just handed her the flashlight. As the girl walked away, Darius lifted his mug. To the ones who never got a second look. Maya lifted hers too. And the ones who made them look again. They clinked glasses. No press, no headlines. Just 2 people who'd built something that would outlast them both. Outside, the city lights blinked on quiet, steady, just like change.